everyone. Welcome back to Underreported Stories, where I cover the news that CNN, MSNBC, and Fox News fail to report on or don't report on enough. As I'm coming to you right now, Kash Patel was just confirmed as our new FBI director, so congratulations to him. Kelly Loeffler was also just confirmed to head the Small Business Administration. I always want to call it Small Business Association. Small Business Administration as well, so congrats to them both. But I want to start out with the big news of the day, given that Trump has signed an executive order cutting off taxpayer-funded benefits for illegal immigrants, which is our hard-earned taxpayer dollars, now no longer being spent on people who blatantly disregard the laws of this country, and that is, of course, somehow gravely upsetting the left. But here's the thing. Taxpayer-funded money going out to illegal immigrants is already illegal. In 1996, Congress signed the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, which prohibits illegal immigrants from obtaining most taxpayer-funded benefits. But that rule of law was ignored by a giant bureaucracy pushed through by the left and empowered by the moron Republicans who don't care about following the law. The very people who are upset by this executive order are telling you they don't want to follow the rule of law. They're not actually upset by the alleged breaking of the rule of law by Donald Trump. They just want their behemoth bureaucracy in place because the truth is they prefer the status quo to real and lasting change that impacts us. Trump said when he signed this executive order that taxpayer resources have acted as a magnet for migrants and fueled the immigration crisis in the U.S. I think that is beyond fair to say that someone living in a shack in Venezuela is, yes, going to be enticed to come when they see a family member or a cousin or a friend living at the Row in New York City. I think that's a pretty fair assessment of the immigration crisis right now. And as someone who's gone to the border and talked to these people, this analysis is not far off from what the migrants are going to tell you, okay? The executive order, what it actually does, it tasks each agency with going through their existing appropriations and redirecting spending away from any efforts that give taxpayer dollars to illegal immigrants. Now, I am almost positive that there will be a lawsuit against this, and just watch. You'll watch MSNBC. They're going to have a freaking meltdown over Trump's stepping on Congress's power of the purse. That's not to be demeaned, of course. However, it's already not legal to spend taxpayer money on illegal immigration benefits. All he's doing is forcing the bureaucracy and Congress to follow the law. Boo freaking who if you don't like that. If Congress would follow the damn laws, this wouldn't be an executive order that was necessary. And I'm just, as I prepped for the show, I was just like, I'm so fed up with the rhinos right now. Especially, not even with just the whole immigration thing, especially with the conversation surrounding Russia and Ukraine right now. If you still believe, or you still have neocon views, that if we just keep funding Ukraine, they're going to win this war, I'm sorry, that's stupid. That's a really stupid perspective. It's mean for me to say that. I don't care. If anyone has been observing politics since Trump came into office and they genuinely believe that Trump is pro-Russia, you're not paying attention. In fact, you are engaging in another Russia collusion hoax. Trump's priorities are incredibly clear. Make a deal, end wars, put America first. And the media, they want to put you in an ideological box where you're either 100% pro-Ukraine or you're in favor of Putin. It's like, hail Zelensky or hail Putin. That is so not true and not indicative of where the average American stands. So here's where I stand on all of this. I'm just going to lay it all out there, and hopefully I'm speaking directly to someone who needs to feel seen as well, okay? Russia is an aggressor. Russia started this war. Putin is an evil dictator. He's not to be trusted. In an ideal world, this war would have never started. I also believe Ukraine is a corrupt country, and that while Zelensky appears to have good intentions, especially at the beginning of the war, I'll remember, and I'll probably never forget, that when other countries initially offered to airlift him out at the beginning of the war, he stayed. That's noble. But refusing to hold elections is undemocratic. The trademark behavior of a dictator. We, as a democratic nation, democratic republic, we still hold elections here, even during wartime. Refusing to be honest about the position that Ukrainians are in right now, that's also problematic, and it has resulted in the death and destruction of families across Ukraine. The truth is, a deal needs to be struck. And from the looks of it, Ukraine, as it was with its borders before the war, is not going to look the same. I'm not saying I think that's good. I'm just telling you the reality. Both sides need to concede. Yes, the bad guys in Russia need to get something out of these negotiations. It's the only way to stop a war. That's what making a deal is. It doesn't look perfect. And I agree, not ideal, because this never should have happened. I'm okay with recognizing that, but we can't go back now and stop Russia from invading. Donald Trump can't rewind time and fix that. What he can do is broker a deal to save lives and end this war. So I just don't think there's this massive need to be pro-Ukraine or pro-Russia. These narratives must be shattered. We need to be pragmatic. We need to be realistic, which is something I've come to understand the media has no interest in being. Instead, they just want to call Trump a Putin stooge for calling Zelensky a dictator when his actions do look dictatorial. Mind you, this morning, as those comments have been made by Trump, these unsubstantiated reports are starting to come in. And again, they are unsubstantiated. I'm not going to say, according to this person, like the media. They're unsubstantiated reports from people within Ukraine claiming that Zelensky has blocked Ukrainians' access to Trump's social media platform, Truth Social. If this is true, this would make me believe, if you're trying to prove that Zelensky's not a dictator, why would silencing the leader of the free world who doesn't 100% agree with Zelensky's viewpoint do anything to better the point that you are not a dictator? Oh, man. It's tough and it's difficult subjects. But I just want you to know that if your ideological provisions don't sit in one little box, you're not alone. Okay? I look at this stuff day after day after day, and I don't feel like I fit in an ideological box either, and that's okay. But I do feel like a deal. We are one step closer to it, and that's all we want, right? I think that's what everybody wants, peace, and enduring peace. But anyway, let's get into our underreported stories. Here's what I've got on the docket for you guys today. The day that Trump signed an executive order on IVF, a wild IVF nightmare lawsuit has gone public. Also, DOGE found $2 billion in taxpayer funds earmarked for a far lefty whose name you will definitely know. And Biden's nearly $500 billion student debt cancellation plan is officially done after an appeals court ruled. So without further ado, let's get into the 5 underreported stories that you need to know. Today's show is brought to you by my merch line, Based. I'm an independent journalist, and the best way to support this show is by purchasing a hat, a hoodie, or the new Based Not Basic tote, or really any item from the apparel collection. Instead of asking you guys for donations to fund my independent journalism, my business partner and I created a line of merch called Based Apparel. Based means you're the opposite of woke. It means you're based in logic, you're based in truth. You get it. Head over to basedinlogic.com to check out our latest apparel. My personal favorite right now is the Based two-tone shirt. And remember, when you buy merch, you are directly supporting this show. Thank you, friends. The same day that President Trump signed an executive order expanding IVF, this insane lawsuit about IVF gone wrong dropped. The story, it has to be in a chokehold. So I'm going to lay out all the facts for you guys. Christina Murray, her name is spelled a little funny though, Krystena, but Christina. Christina Murray became pregnant in 2023 after undergoing IVF treatment. In December of 23, she gave birth to a healthy baby boy, but she knew immediately that the baby did not come from one of her lab fertilized eggs because the baby is black and Christina and her sperm donor are white. So immediately she knew there was something that had gone wrong. Turns out doctors had transferred another patient's embryo into her instead of her own. Murray, after this all happened, still decided that she was going to raise this child as her own. But per the fertility clinic's uh, prerogative, I guess, they tracked down the baby's biological parents. And of course, I can't slight these parents. They demanded custody of their child. And Murray ultimately, Christina, she had to give up the 5-month-old that she carried to avoid a legal fight she couldn't win. Now, my heart immediately broke because, wow, you carry something under the guise that it's your child, you give birth to it, you still love him, you take care of him, and then 5 months in, 9 months of carrying it, 5 months postpartum, you then have to give up your child. So she has now filed a civil suit against the coastal fertility specialists, alleging that the clinic's negligence caused her ongoing pain and anguish. The fertility office put out a statement reading, quote, "This was an isolated event with no further patients affected. We are doing everything we can to make things right for those affected by this incident." That is really crazy to be calling it an incident. According to the lawyer representing Christina Murray, more than 1,000 patients are taking currently legal action against fertility clinics for mistaking embryos, losing or damaging embryos, or storing them in improper or malfunctioning freezers. So, of course, the timing of the story matters a lot because the White House, they signed an executive order that calls for reliable, notably, and affordable fertility treatments to help men and women experiencing fertility issues. At first, I read that and I was like, well, that's kind of woke. But that's not what they meant, obviously. Men aren't getting pregnant. It just kind of sounded like that for a second, let's be honest. Now, this is such a hotly contested topic, so please drop your thoughts on this story and this executive order. Because yes, there's a lot of nuance to this, and I'll be frank, personally I struggle with my stance on an issue like this. I've watched IVF help friends who wanted to build a family and otherwise would not have been able to have a family, and I'm very pro-family. So of course, I want families to be conceived. That's beautiful to me. However, I am a data-driven person. That is first and foremost who I am. And infertility among men and women is growing across the country. And I just think it's time that we asked why. To me, IVF is a band-aid. Perhaps a useful one. We can debate that. But it's not a resolution to the growing problem of infertility. It's kind of should be the last line of defense. And in my opinion, our government shouldn't be focused on band-aids. Focusing our efforts on band-aids has been what's led us to the current big pharma crisis we're in right now. Our government, our healthcare leaders, they should be focused on the underlying root causes and rooting out those causes from our system to help women have a higher chance of natural conception. I think everybody wants that. I'm not bashing IVF while simultaneously saying there is a ideal way to do this. I feel like it's very controversial to say that, but I don't care. Anyway, let me know your thoughts on this because, again, very emotional issue, and I'm happy to hear from anybody. Anyway, let's get into our next story, which is another update from DOGE and all of the DOGE findings, because we get another update every day, but I get to pick the most fun ones. So it's been uncovered that $2 billion in taxpayer funds have been earmarked for a group with ties to failed Georgia gubernatorial candidate Stacey Abrams. I thought we were done with this bitch. I really thought I wasn't going to have to talk about her for a while. But no, she's back. Guess who's back? Back again. Stacey's back. Tell your friends. Okay. Anyway, it was the Detroit me. Anyway. Biden's Environmental Protection Agency, so the EPA, they awarded the group, it's called the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund. This group got a sizable grant, like I said, $2 billion. Problem is that this organization has never managed any money. Nonetheless, $2 billion. In 2023, tax returns found that the group reported just $100 in total revenue during its first 3 months. And where the controversy all lies is that you know what, actually, that is controversy enough. Why are we doling out grants to brand new organizations that have no idea what they're doing and how they're operating? Secondly, Stacey Abrams sits on the board of this greenhouse organization's parent company, the company that helped create this greenhouse organization. Stacey Abrams oversees all of it. And according to Lee Zeldin, who is the current EPA director, the Biden administration moved the total grant money for these green organizations into an outside financial institution before leaving office. So even if Lee Zeldin came in, DOGE came in, and they decided that they wanted to get rid of this funding, that they wanted to claw back that money, the Biden administration has hindered them from doing that because that separate financial institution account limits the federal government's oversight of these programs. So the money exists in a separate Citibank account. And now any Trump official or any bureaucrat in general who wants to take back that money, review how it's being spent, can't do that. Now, I think when I look at this, I'm like, this is why honest people think the government is engaged in money laundering. Because the Biden administration doled out billions of dollars, 20 billion to be exact. The grant total that's sitting in that Citibank account, $20 billion to organizations that fit their preferred narrative and have ties, if not direct relationships, to their stooges. And that financially benefits their friends and their family without benefiting the American people at all. And by the way, I don't want to just criticize the left for this. The right does this too. And it's got to stop. No more using Congress and bureaucratic institutions to essentially launder money to your preferred groups and political candidates. It's got to stop. Seriously, I sincerely believe in the mission of DOGE. I sincerely think that the waste, fraud, and abuse is going to end, or at least come to a dramatic halt. It's got to be sorted out by both sides of the party, though. It can't just be the right wanting this, and it can't just be the MAGA base wanting this. It's got to be all of them. They all got to get on board. But of course, the media is making that nearly impossible. Okay, let's get into our next story, which is that CNN's Kaitlin Collins is under fire for sharing a link to a website that included a donation page for accused United Healthcare CEO killer Luigi Mangione. Oh, Luigi. We haven't talked about him in a while. He really overshadowed the beginning of, or the end of 2023 and the beginning of 24. That's wrong. The end of 24 and the beginning of 25. Gotta get my years right. And then we just stopped talking about him. He just disappeared into the ether. We miss you, Luigi. Not as a person, but I just miss the Luigi stories. They're fascinating. Anyway, this is the original tweet that got Kaitlin Collins in deep shit. Luigi Mangione's legal defense team has launched a new website today, and then she linked the website. Kaitlin Collins has since deleted her post, and then the New York Post, separate, so Kaitlin Collins deletes her post. Then the New York Post comes in, writes this headline saying, CNN's Kaitlin Collins deletes post promoting Luigi Mangione's defense fund after backlash, to which Collins responded, "This is not true. I posted that his attorneys created a website, which is newsworthy, and other outlets have also reported on this. In no way did I share a fundraising link for him." Let me pull up this first tweet again, because I think we got to look at this again. I'm not going to lie, I'm looking at it. It's a weird thing to say for an alleged journalist. Traditionally, when you're doing this, you write breaking news, Luigi Mangione update, or just in, and then proceed to write the update. Just a little something to indicate to the viewers or the readers that you're reporting on something as opposed to tweeting aimlessly about something that interests you, perhaps in your personal capacity, because reporters love to do that, and I'm not going to lie and say, that's just how personal social media works. Sometimes you're tweeting on your own behalf. Sometimes you're tweeting in your professional capacity. It's your Twitter account, X account, whatever you want to call it. The problem for Kaitlin Collins here is that in her own delusional mind, she thinks that she's some nonpartisan journalist that Americans should trust. So when she tweets a link to a Luigi Mangione defense fund or updated website that includes a defense fund, she assumes that we assume she's acting in good faith. However, that's why I like to use the word delusional about it, because that is not at all how the public perceives a CNN reporter. Certainly not Kaitlin Collins either. So do I think her intentions were to just share a legal update? Perhaps. Probably. But I think it more so showcases a real lack of understanding about her professional status. I think that's what happens when the Hollywood media starts to coincide with the mainstream corporate media. the corporate media, they're hacks, and they'll go on these Hollywood shows, they'll go on late night TV, and they'll be beloved by those tiny little audiences in those enclaves in the coasts. And they really start to believe that they're beloved and more important. And that's not reality. And I think that's exactly what happened in this case. If you love this podcast, then you will absolutely love the Underreported Stories Substack. It's an email sent straight to your inbox Monday through Friday. You'll get an in-depth analysis of stories that are underreported, hot takes from me on the biggest news of the day, and Underreported Wrapped, where I'll let you in on personal updates, big news that flew under the radar, and you'll get a few pictures from America's Goodest Boy, my dog, Harper. Check out the link in the description to subscribe for free, and while you're down there, be sure to give this episode a thumbs up or a 5-star review. This next story is brought to you by Ground News. It's so hard to know what information to trust, especially when information is released faster than it can be verified. And also, let's be honest, reporting nowadays really favors clickbait content over high-quality journalism. I rail about that all the time, and that's why I'm prepping for a show or when I'm trying to prep for this next story, I trust Ground News. It's an app and a website that combines news from all different sides of the political spectrum to give you the facts and see where the media is perhaps exaggerating, sensationalizing, or underreporting news. I mean, come on. Can they make a more perfect app for you and I? When you use my link in the description, you'll get 40% off the Vantage subscription, which, by the way, I pay for out of my own pocket. It is so well worth it. Please pause this episode, go get a subscription, come back over. You help support this show. You help support real journalism. Head over to check.ground.news/Chrissy to get informed on the go. So again, prepped this next story using Ground News, and it is that the Biden legacy is looking more bleak by the day after a federal appeals court finally ruled that Biden's student debt cancellation program must be blocked in its entirety. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal and Judge L. Stephen Gross found that former Education Secretary Miguel Cardona exceeded his authority in creating the student loan forgiveness program, which ultimately would have cost us a whopping $475 billion. So this plan had already gone into effect. Nearly 8 million people, borrowers, currently enrolled in the program. And now borrowers are obviously very worried about whether there's going to be an increase in monthly payments. However, Republicans have indicated that they want to pass what is called the College Cost Reduction Act to improve these repayment options to lower the cost. Obviously, they would still be taking on their debt. It's the debt that they took. However, they wouldn't be paying them at these exorbitant rates. Missouri's Attorney General Andrew Bailey, who filed this lawsuit, tweeted, "Just in, we obtained another court order blocking an illegal Biden-era student loan scheme. Though Biden is out of office, the precedent is imperative to ensuring a president cannot force working Americans to foot the bill for someone else's Ivy League debt." Huge win. Now, my sympathy goes out to the Americans who bought into the college lie. I am more empathetic about this than most commentators on this subject because I truly believe, as someone who's lived it out, that it has become very ostracizing to do the right thing in finances, dating, politics, all of it. I assume a lot of people go through it in the same way, but if you've lived in big cities or you've lived in very liberal areas, but you want to hold conservative values, it can still be really difficult to do the right thing. And if you are specifically young, when you are susceptible to these narratives, it makes it even more difficult. But the truth is that naivete doesn't change what people signed up for. People signed up for these loans. They're going to have to pay back these loans. I don't feel bad about that. That's the consequences of a decision. And like I said, morally, I don't agree that the federal taxpayer should be on the hook for someone else's decisions. I'm very happy with the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeal decision. And ironically about all of this, the ruling that the Biden administration overstepped its authority comes as there's wall-to-wall coverage from every media outlet that pushed for this loan forgiveness. Now they're all saying that Trump is overstepping his authority. I'm looking at the camera straight on in my studio where I'm looking now. If you're watching this, it's slightly to the right of my camera. There's a TV that I have set up, and I keep a multi-view of Fox, CNN, MSNBC, and the BBC on. all throughout the day, so I can just kind of peruse what's going on. I keep my little remote right here, and when something interesting happens, I unmute the TV and listen to it and listen in, and it's how I consume the media right now. And it's just so effing funny the way I've spent 5 days watching nonstop, wall to wall. Trump is overstepping his authority. Trump's overstepping his authority. Like, all the freaking MSNBC commentators, they come and they all sound the same. They either sound like an old man, or they sound like lame. I don't know. Anyway, they come on and they're railing against Trump overstepping his authority, and then boom, all of a sudden, a court finds that Biden was overstepping his authority this entire time, and they're like, never mind, we're not going to talk about that story. Come on. And you guys know me. Like, I'm not a massive Trump sycophant. I just want the truth. If there's an overstep of powers, I'm cool with you calling it out. Like, I don't care if MSNBC is calling out legitimate criticisms. I don't care. I just cannot stand when they do such a bad job of calling out the bad actions of one side and not the other. It's frustrating. Let's be honest. Anyway, let's get to our fifth and final story, which I'm warning you is a little nauseating. I was nauseous reading it. I can't even watch some like gory shows, like never watched Game of Thrones, too gory for me. So I'm just saying, like, this made my stomach curdle a little, but I'm also very sensitive to the stomach curdling stuff. Anyway, warning, 3, 2, 1, here's the story. 70 Christians were found beheaded in a church in the Democratic Republic of Congo. According to field sources, militants with ties to the Islamic State captured 20 Christian men and Christian women. When the news was announced, 50 additional Christians gathered to strategize how to best release those captives. The Islamic group then captured the 50 additional Christians. The group of 70 were ultimately brought to a church and beheaded for their beliefs. It's been estimated that 355 people were killed for their faith in the DRC in the last year. Now, I take solace in knowing that Jesus told believers that we would be prosecuted for our faith, that he knew this would happen. It's horrific nonetheless. But to the top of today's show, when we were discussing how it's very easy to see nuance in a Russia or Ukraine war. There are nuances to everything, of course. However, I just don't see how someone can look at what's going on in the DRC or with ISIS and think that there's justification or nuance in the conversation of killing people over their beliefs. And there are people that stick up for this. Same with what Hamas just did this week. You watch people stick up for Palestine while simultaneously Hamas is carrying out the bodies of 2 babies, while the people in Gaza cheered and considered the death of a baby, of a toddler, considering that a victory. There aren't two sides to that. I can understand the nuances of land disputes and whatnot. I don't see the justification for needlessly murdering. There is so clearly a moral right and a moral wrong in these cases, and it doesn't mean that there isn't nuance to the spending or the American interference, but there's a moral right and wrong in nearly all of these instances. So, before we wrap, I've heard from a lot of you guys that you don't fully understand what's going on in the whole New York City, Eric Adams corruption drama. So yesterday, I spent my whole day, and I mean whole day, putting together a video with just the facts about what's happening. It's available on the Chrissy Clark YouTube and Rumble channels, so please do me a favor and go check it out, because I think you'll find it very helpful, very informative, and of course, every time you click on one of my videos, even if you just watch it for a couple of minutes, you are helping me in my investigative journalism. If you are a real one and you made it to the end of today's show, will you drop the baby bottle emoji as an homage to the IVF debate and that insane nightmare story that we talked about? Thanks, friends. I'll see you back here on Tuesday. Have a great weekend. Thanks so much for watching. If you liked what you heard, please be sure to subscribe and leave a comment about how beautiful, intelligent, and funny I am. And if you want more content, click right over here for more videos and clips of my show. I'll see you back here next time. Bye!